We were actually expecting to have the highest tourist numbers ever in 2020. And then everything just stopped. There was a very high decrease in the international tourist arrivals. In the region that I'm working in, the decrease was 78%. We have, as you said, we have started with the Taste of Fethiye project. It was a supply chain. We built a sustainable supply chain. What I would actually like tourists is to question the products and services that they receive.
This is the Green on the Go podcast, where we talk about keeping travel sustainable. And for today's episode, I'm joined by Şemsi Toprak from the Travel Foundation. So obviously, I know you, but our listeners won't. So if you could start by telling us a little bit about your background and what you do as a job.
Yeah. My name is Şemsi Toprak, and I work for the Travel Foundation, an organization that works in the field of sustainable tourism. And I'm the country manager for the Turkey program and working with the organization for over 11 years now. My background is actually agriculture. I was managing my agricultural production company before getting involved with the Travel Foundation, and started as a consultant for one of the agriculture sustainable change projects that the organization was planning to run in the Fethiye region. So they hired me as a part-time consultant. And then I really liked the job. I really liked the idea of sustainable tourism. And I was born in Fethiye, so I want to do something more productive for the region that I was born and raised in. And since tourism is one of the main sources of income in our region, and there are lots of issues about over-tourism, management of tourism, I thought that should be one of the best things that I could work on, so that we could do good things around the sector. So I started. I took the position, and then it grew to other projects. And I'm now a full-time employee of the project and managing my team in Turkey. And very happy with my job.
Yeah, you've got an amazing job, and I know that when we came to visit and you kind of were showing us around, you knew everybody. There wasn't a person in Fethiye I don't think that you didn't know. And you had so many great contacts, and to go to some incredible restaurants, and so yeah, I could tell that community was massive thing for you, and keeping that community healthy and thriving. So, it kind of leads me on to my next question, which is how the pandemic affected, Turkey and the Fethiye region, and because it does thrive so much on tourism, and kind of what happened during that time.
We were actually expecting to have the highest tourist numbers ever in 2020. And then was planning to host lots of people. In one of my projects, I was focusing on a great number of agricultural products that the tourism could buy from. Anyway, and then everything just stopped for a very long time. And with these uncertainties, like whether the hotels will start operating again, when they will start, if they will ever operate again, at what size they will do. So lots of there are still lots of uncertainties. But I think we, as the sector, act really flexibly and try to recover from the losses that we experienced. And focused on the domestic market predominantly. And there was a very high decrease in the international tourist arrivals. In the region that I'm working in, the decrease was 78% compared with the previous years. But still, the hotels could survive with the help of domestic tourism, and with focusing on some different markets, such as increase in Russian market and Ukrainian markets. in the region that I'm working in is prominently working with the British tourism market, but we couldn't host as many British tourists as we hoped, especially in 2021. I think the most surprising thing is how these operations could be that flexible at the end of the day. We are talking about huge hotels, big airline companies, but we all tried to adapt to the certain conditions that we experienced during COVID-19, and things actually developed not as bad as we initially thought. It's still not as good as we hope or we expect to expect it, but still I think it's still is functioning at least.
Yeah, it's ticking over, and no doubt it will make a comeback. I think the travel industry is going to see a big comeback in the next sort of 24 months, but it's definitely taken a hit. So I'm quite interested to know, obviously there wasn't an economic economically it was tragic, I imagine, with the not having tourists come to the area, but environmentally, was there positive effects? When we came to visit you were telling us all about the Blue Wave project, which aims to provide awareness and understanding of the threats to marine environment from marine tourism. It was a really interesting project to find out about. We went to one of the boats that was part of this Blue Wave project that were really looking after the marine life that was around them, instead of damaging it through over tourism. So because all those boats weren't going out as much during this period of time, did it have a positive effect on the ecosystems and the water, or was it not really noticed at all?
Yeah, actually, last year, 2020, it was very, very nice for the environment because we didn't have as many tourists as we expected. And the seas especially got rested a bit from those consumptions, and especially high intensity of tourists. But at first, we just thought that, it's a great opportunity for everybody in the tourism sector. We also have time to rethink about our operations, rethink about our future practices, and maybe focus on a better future for the sector. But this actually didn't last very long, in my understanding. And people, since many of the businesses started to lose money, they wanted to get back to where they were as soon as possible and put back what they lost during COVID-19. And this rethink about the future of tourism didn't last so long, and there's a tendency towards going back to as business as usual as soon as possible. But once we didn't have that many tourists, it was actually nice for the marine, especially for the marine environment. But this is not a solution, we have to do everything in harmony. We still need to have tourists using the marine environment, using the seas, taking boat trips, because economically the region needs that. But we have to do this in a more responsible way, so that these things can work in harmony. Because having no tourists also is damaging the economic life of the locals. But I was very optimistic at first, but it didn't go as well as I thought. And now we are going back to normal, and then the problems that we have been thinking about are coming back. And my fear is, like, especially in 2022, there is going to be a huge problem with over-tourism in the region, and we may even encounter with bigger problems than we tried to deal with in the last years. So yeah.
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Yeah, there's been that break, but now suddenly everyone needs to be making up for lost time, and you don't want there to be a surge, it's over tourism. Because from my understanding is that the demand for berthing space in the Mulga region is set to double over the next 2 decades, as sort of recreational marine tourism grows, and most tourists take at least one boat trip during their stay. So does this mean that the Blue Wave project is going to continue? And how does sort of the region plan to manage this?
Yeah, it actually had already doubled, by the way, because there was great increase in sea tourism. Because as you would also think, like the boats are more isolated places for tourists. So private boat tours boomed in 2020 and 21. People even couldn't find berthing spaces or spaces to anchor around the base in the places that we have been working with. So the boat and sea tourism sector was one of the beneficiaries of the COVID-19 pandemic, because they were able to provide more isolated tours and travels for tourists. Now we are looking at even a bigger problems with the sea tourism, because there's a huge pressure from the boats in the marine environment we work with, and the project is still going on. It's been 6 years now since we have started the project, and now we are expanding the project to other regions in Turkey. It's not only in Göcek and Fethiye anymore. We are now implementing the training program in Bodrum, Marmaris, some of the mainstream destinations which are also popular with sea tourism activities. So we are aware of the fact that we need to do even more, and the pressure is rising really faster than we thought. So the problems that we are dealing with are even bigger problems now. But since we have been implementing the projects for 5 years, especially in Fethiye and Muğla, in Fethiye and Göcek regions, we had already implemented our training program. We had already set up the pollution, marine pollution centers. We had already set up the waste collection facilities. So especially in Fethiye and Göcek regions, we were able to provide some infrastructure and some awareness raising activities. But in other regions, very close to the place that we worked in, there are things that are still lacking. So what we are trying to do is to expand the activities that we had expanded in the last 5 years in the regions, and then try to re-implement the things that we have been doing around the southwest coast of Mediterranean Turkey. Yeah. So we are even like it was a very unexpected thing, this pandemic, and it actually had a lot of very challenging effects on the Blue Wave project, unfortunately.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I know that the Blue Wave project is not the only project you've been running. You've had a very busy few months, actually, and just obviously there was the Taste of Fethiye project as well, which is something that we experienced while we were there. But you've got a couple of other projects ongoing now as well. If you could tell us a little bit more about these new projects that have come up and why they're important to the area.
Yeah. We have, as you said, we have started with the Taste of Fethiye project. It was a supply chain. We built a sustainable supply chain for the hotels that are operating in the Fethiye region, and we worked with around 40 hotels in the region. And the idea was to provide local fresh fruit and vegetables to the hotels. And with the learnings of this project, we expanded our supply chain related projects in other regions. But the Taste of Fethiye has a unique place. It also got awarded by UNWTO. It has a ULIS Innovation Award. And this was one of the first sustainable supply chain projects that we have successfully implemented in Turkey. And with the learnings from that project, which the Holiday Extras also supported towards the end of it, with the learnings that we had received from the Taste of Fethiye project, now we are working on a different project. It's a bigger scale project, and it includes almost all the mainstream destinations in the Muğla region, such as Marmaris, Bodrum, Fethiye, Sarıgerme. So I'm traveling all around these towns, all destinations, but working on a different field. Like we are working on not only in fresh fruit and vegetables, but we are working in with value-added agriculture products, with cooperatives, with small businesses. And what we try to do is directly link these small producers with some of the biggest hotels in our region. So these people are supplying local honey, local dried fruits, jams, all type of value-added products that are produced in locally. And it's going really well, really,
it
really
totally
well.
makes sense. Like if I'm going to Turkey or to Fethiye, let's say, and I'm staying in a hotel, I want to taste the local food. I want to, it doesn't make sense to import it, does it? If you're traveling, you want to indulge in the culture and the flavors. And, I know that when we were visiting, you took us to one of the markets and we were able to speak to some of the market vendors, and they were so proud of their products as well. And it was, fresher and there's so much color. And I think it's I'm so pleased to hear that it is going well, because it just totally makes sense, doesn't it? Like why would you import it from outside of the country when you've got some really, really great produce right on your doorstep?
Yeah, it gives the sense of place to the tourists. So once we put some informative documents next to the products that the hotels offer locally to the tourists, and we from the feedbacks that we receive from the customers, they really like the feel of the location, feel of the place. So they feel like they are even more connected with the place they are visiting. And in Turkey, most of the hotels that we work with are all-inclusive hotels, which tourists only stay in the hotel for some time during their holidays and then leave the country. And what they can experience locally are the things that the hotels offer to the tourists, which are really, really important for the tourists, because staying in a concept hotel can be the same experience. Like you can go to a branded hotel in Spain, and the same branded hotel can be situated in Turkey, and there are not much differences, because all the colors are different, same, all the rooms, all the buildings are looking similar, but what you can experience differently is actually the food that are served in the hotel.
Yeah. And for me, food is like one of the best parts of traveling. And in Turkey, you guys have got some really good food. Really, really good food. So absolutely. So that's one of the projects. And you said that was there another project as well that you've got going on at the moment?
Now we are working on over-tourism issues and destination management issues. What we are trying to do is to bring up new tools for the destination management offices around the destinations. So they are mostly based on monitoring and evaluation issues. So what we want the destinations to be aware of their impacts on the operations as an overall issue, because most of the destination managers are focusing on promotion, focusing on advertisers. But what we are trying to encourage them is to actually focus on their own practices, rather than bringing more tourists to the destination, they also need to consider the fact that the destination needs to have certain sustainability measures, so that once the visitors start, once the visitor numbers start growing, so they could be serving them in a sufficient level. So what we are trying to do is to mainly focus on the destination management side of things, so that, and collaborate with local stakeholders in planning tourism activities. Especially, our focus is right now is on over tourism. As the Travel Foundation, we had released a study with the Cornell University, which is called The Invisible Burden of Tourism. So what we are trying to do is to talk about that invisible burden, which is actually not very invisible for the local managers and local authorities, because they are always trying to keep with the pressure that they receive from tourism. Especially in the region that I'm working with, all the infrastructure is mainly built for the locals. But once we have the tourism season, the population just triples, and then the tourists are also using the same infrastructure that was actually initially built for the locals. So what we are trying to do is to reconsider all the structures, all the practices around the tourism sector, and bringing new tools, bringing new ideas, and rethink about the future activities, the future operations. So destination management organizations are now our new focus in Turkey. And we are working with tourism councils and trying to spread the word of sustainable tourism and responsible travel, which is actually not a very common knowledge for many of the stakeholders that we work with in Turkey.
Would you say, how do locals feel about tourists then in Turkey? Like, are they welcome, or is there a pushback on it, or is there get them in and let's get as much money as possible? Kind of, what's the general feel amongst local people and tourists?
I think hospitality is probably the main virtue that we have in Turkey. So whoever comes to Turkey, whether an international tourist or a domestic tourist, we always like to host people that are visiting our region. So tourists are very much welcomed in Turkey, and it's like we like hosting people, we like visitors, we like interacting with visitors, we like serving what we have to visitors. So they are very much welcomed in Turkey, and and interaction is very nice, and everything goes well. But in terms of the market, in terms of the sector shapes itself, there are some problems within, such as high pressure in the marine environment, for example, or high pressure on certain locations, such as mainstream, such as the most popular place that everybody wants to go in. So there are problems around those places and around those tourism products that we offer. But these are not, these are the responsibilities that the destination managers has to feel. So how we can operate more sustainably, how we can diverse these pressures on those locations or on those products. So it is not only how we welcome the tourists, it's mainly about how we plan their visits, because these people are not responsible with of course, at some parts, yes, they are responsible with their own practices, but there has to be a certain infrastructure, certain program around those visits. And what we plan to do, what we are trying to do, is to plan that for at least to deal with the pressure, a possible pressure that we may experience with those visits. But the tourists, I don't see them as a part of the problem, because everybody at the end of the day wants to have good holidays, wants to feel the places that they want to visit. So what is needed to be done is building up a more reliable, a better functioning structure for those visitors. And these are the responsibilities of destination managers.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's a sort of response. I think destination managers are responsible, but tourists are responsible as well for their actions. And so, what advice would you give a British tourist coming to Turkey on holiday, wanting to, have a sustainable trip, wanting to give back to the country, to the culture, to the communities, whilst also having a nice holiday at the same time? What tips would you give them?
Yeah. With our projects, we are building some models like, this is the model of sustainable food supplies, or this is with the Blue Wave project, that was the model, that is the model with more sustainable sea tourism operations. So there are some ideal examples that these tourists experience, but this only applies to some certain parts of the sector. What I would actually like tourists is to question the products and services that they receive. Like, I'm receiving that service, or that I'm buying that product, but where is this product is coming from? So who is getting benefit from this product? Is it only that company that I'm buying the product from, or is it or does this has a major effect on the local communities? I think the tourists need to start questioning themselves and questioning the services and the products that they are receiving. So once we start to question, because the tourists are the most important stakeholder in the sector, all the businesses are trying to fulfill the tourists' requirements, tourists' needs, and once the tourists start to ask more sustainable, more responsible way of bringing products, then the product and the tourism business will start to consider bringing and serving more responsible tourism products. So what I would actually do is, like, that can be even a small thing, like a small gift that you get from a gift shop. So where was this gift was built? Like, is it an imported gift, or does it even have a relation with local communities? If not, why are these people are not considering to link these gifts or these products with local communities? Or as a tourist, I'm going to a place, let's say, and then the money that I'm spending, who is getting the money? Like, who is it a diverse distribution, or only the hotel or the tour company is getting that? So what I would actually question is that my presence at that destination needs to affect other people, just not only the business, but I'm getting the product from, but it has to have a major effect on other people that I don't see. So if I don't see these people, and I would actually question those people, like, what are the relations with local communities? Is there even there are no relations? What I would do is I would just ask, why are those products are not linked with local communities or local sources? Because then the businesses will start to question themselves. So if the request is coming from the tourists, which is the most important stakeholder for a business, then they would then think of implementing better and more responsible practices. So
Absolutely.
question
I mean,
everything you receive,
yeah.
question all the services, all the
Yeah.
products you receive.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard it said it's sort of, you vote with your wallet, you know, you vote with what you want, with what you're paying for. And so, you know, as a tourist, you've got to make that choice and say, I want to pay for a local product instead of something that's not local, and then it will instigate more local products being available. Well, thank you so much, Emsi. That was really, really fascinating chatting to you and kind of catching up on what is going on in Turkey since my last visit 18 months ago. I'd love to be able to get out again. It was such a beautiful place. And yeah, it sounds like you're super busy as well, so which is really, really great. You've got your fingers in a lot of pies out there, but yeah, good luck with the rest of the work that you're doing, and we're going to continue following your journey for sure, and hopefully we'll get that Turkey travel guide out soon as well.
I'm very much looking forward to it. Yeah. And thank you very much for hosting me and the organization that I work for. It's always a pleasure to be with you, India, and very much looking forward to host you in very near future in Turkey again.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you.
We're not going fast enough, and I feel like we're only realizing when it happens to us, and that's kind of like, you know, the beautiful characteristics of human beings, I'm guessing, you know.